All right, hello and welcome back to another episode of Just a Girl from Cleveland. This is episode 168. Been a few weeks since we have connected on here. If you're following on YouTube, you probably, or maybe, have seen the live streams I've been doing during games, but I have not sat down and recorded an episode since before the holidays. Just the timing of the holidays was on the days that I usually record, so didn't line up perfectly, but that is okay because we have a lot to get into today. Bunch of Cavs stuff, bunch of Brown stuff that I want to cover. So I think we can just get right into it. I also want to talk about the NFL playoff schedule in general, and just give some of my predictions and thoughts. Okay, so I think actually we can just start with the NFL schedule, then we'll get into Cavs, and then we'll get into Browns. So playoffs are set. One thing I was very excited about was seeing that the Bengals did not end up making the playoffs. I feel like that fan base in general has decided somehow that the world revolves around them, and everyone is deathly afraid of playing the Bengals in the playoffs, and no one wanted to see them there, even though their defense is terrible. And so I just thought the commentary I was seeing from that fan base was very entertaining, to say the least. But nonetheless, they did not make the playoffs because they did not earn making the playoffs this season. So everyone can stop being afraid. They don't have to face the Bengals anymore. Okay, so let's go with some predictions. We've got on Saturday, the two games are Chargers-Texans and Steelers-Ravens. I am taking the Chargers and the Ravens in these two games. I just feel like obviously the Texans have been devastated with a couple of very important injuries, and they've just shown so many weaknesses throughout the season. Not that I feel like the Chargers haven't, but I really think even leading into this year, people got a little bit too excited about the Texans in general, just after CJ Stroud's rookie year and everything he was able to accomplish. He's definitely taken a bit of a step back. I don't think all of their troubles on that team have been CJ's fault. Obviously, a lot of them are defensively too, but I do think he has taken a little bit of a step back. So I am going with the Chargers there. Steelers-Ravens, it's been a classic Steelers season where they're doing enough to be in the playoffs, but everyone kind of feels like they're a fraudulent team. This season, like many seasons, they start very strong and then start to show more weaknesses as the season goes on. This season, no different. And the Ravens just feel like a team that is firing on all cylinders and has a real shot at, getting to either the conference championships or the Super Bowl. I really feel like there's a good chance for them. So I'm going Ravens in that game. Then we have Sunday, 3 games. We've got Broncos, Bills, Packers, Eagles, Commanders, Bucks. Some of these ones were a little bit easier for me. The first one being Broncos, Bills, taking the Bills hands down. Like that was a very easy choice for me to make. I think the Bills, along with the Ravens, look like a team that could very much make a deep run in these playoffs. Packers, Eagles is one I have gone constantly back and forth with. I think obviously Jalen Hurts is, last I checked, I don't know if anything changed today, still in concussion protocol. I feel like he's probably going to play, but obviously that is super dependent on how we feel like this game is going to end up going. So I'm going Eagles for the time being, but if there's no Jalen Hurts, could be a totally different story. Then we've got Commanders, Bucks. I am taking the Commanders. Both teams, again, I feel like have shown plenty of weaknesses. You've got a rookie QB on one side, but I don't know. I feel like you have to expect that some type of upsets are going to happen within the playoffs. And out of all of the games that exist, this is one where I definitely feel that. And then the last one we have is Vikings Rams. I am taking the Vikings in that game. Again, this one I think could very much go in either direction. I guess that's the beauty of the playoffs, that they could go in either direction. Like, I feel like I'm repeatedly saying that over and over again, but I feel like this Vikings team can beat people in with so many different weapons. And I've just had a really good time watching them this season. I know they've had their touchdown celebrations that are always like a Disney movie or something like that. I've just enjoyed watching them. I feel like they like playing together. So we are rolling with Sam Darnold in this case. But I'm really actually excited about most of these matchups. Looking forward to watching the playoffs. I think it's going to be a fun time, even though our Cleveland Browns obviously will not be in there, weren't even close to being there. Okay, so let's get into the Cavs. Cavs firing on all cylinders. It's just been unbelievable to watch. They're currently 31-4, and they have an upcoming matchup against Oklahoma City on Wednesday night, who is 34-5. They play Oklahoma City again away in about a week, I believe. So some really big games that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in seeing how these matchups go. Because if you were just going by record, this could be a potential NBA Finals matchup, even though anyone who, I guess, analyzes the NBA or talks about the NBA does not think that will be the case. But I do think these teams deserve more respect than they are getting from everyone nationally. There's just been some crazy, I guess, stats for both of these teams. So obviously right now the Cavs have won their last 10 games, and all of those have been by a double-digit margin. So they're on another big run after their big run to start the season. The Cavs have also not lost to a team in the Western Conference yet. They've had many, away games. They just had a really long West Coast trip. Still have not lost to a Western Conference team. So very impressive. But on the other hand, OKC currently on a 15-game win streak. So they are rolling, and they have not lost to an Eastern Conference team, except for if you count the Bucks in their NBA Cup championship game. Then, you would say, okay, they've lost to an Eastern Conference team, but that doesn't technically count in the same way, I would say, as other games. So both teams similarly on these crazy, crazy runs. OKC recently just beat Boston 105-92 pretty soundly. And they were down by, I believe, like 10 at the half and powered back to come back. And I think they've done that quite a bit throughout the course of this season, which I actually think gives the Cavs some level of an advantage, because the Cavs have been kind of demolishing people earlier in games. So I think it'll be, with the talent that the Cavs have, harder for OKC to mount a lead back against the Cavs if they're dominating so much early on. I think where our biggest, I guess, advantage could be in this game would be with Evan and Jarrett and the bigs. Chet is still hurt for OKC, and that would be a really interesting matchup to see. I'm actually kind of disappointed we won't get to see that matchup, but I do think that gives the Cavs a real advantage, where they should probably be leaning into Jarrett and Evan and making sure they're involved, especially offensively in this game. I think that'll be a real difference maker for them. It's interesting. I was looking up all of the different stats about these two teams this season, and by many metrics, the Cavs are actually the best offense in the league, and OKC, by many metrics, is the best defense in the league, which I feel like a couple of years ago, the Cavs consistently had all of the best defensive metrics, and they're still obviously a great defensive team, but it is just funny to kind of see those differences. So the Cavs lead the league in field goal percentage, while OKC leads the league in field goal percentage defense. Cavs are second in the league in points per game. OKC leads the league in points allowed per game. Cavs lead the league in three-point percentage this season, and OKC leads the league in three-point percentage defense this season. So I think it's pretty clear that it's going to be, I think, a very hard-fought game, and the Cavs are going to need to be shooting well up against a defense like this. And like I said, I think if you can get Jarrett and Evan involved a lot, that's going to be really good for them in this game. So I'm really excited. I'm planning on live streaming it tomorrow. So if you want to watch along, would love to see you on the YouTube. Just hoping for the best that we can continue this streak. But what a joy it's been. I also saw someone post like all of the ticket prices earlier for the game, and it's like $200 almost to get in the door, I believe, which is really cool to see for two smaller markets. January game, like that is an awesome thing to see overall, and I'm very happy that these two cities are getting to enjoy some really good basketball. So love to see it. It's also funny it being the Cavs and OKC because it's very reminiscent of back in the day when it was like obviously LeBron in Cleveland, and then you had Kevin Durant, Russ, James Harden, those days of Oklahoma City that were a really big deal. And I think, a lot of players in the league today grew up really, loving and enjoying those teams and enjoying those players. And now those guys are in the league and making it happen themselves. So I think that's really cool to see. I think back in the day when Evan Mobley was drafted, someone asked him like what team he rooted for growing up, and he said he really liked Oklahoma City for like those Kevin Durant, Russ, James Harden days. And I think that just made everyone feel incredibly old that he said, I grew up enjoying that. It was like, wait, wasn't that just happening? Why were you growing up with that? Like time, the passage of time is a really very crazy thing. But yeah, looking forward to it. Okay, so let's get into some Brown stuff. Obviously, season didn't go as planned. Last couple weeks, clunkers of games. The last one, you're just like, please lose this game because we just want to get a higher draft pick at this point. If things are going to go badly, I'm glad that we ended up with the second pick in the draft because it would be really disappointing if you just, continued on throughout the season, like winning here and there, even though you're not going to be competitive for the playoffs, and then end up with like the 9th pick in the draft or something. Like that would be super annoying. So I'm glad we have a really high pick that they should be able to do something with it. And there's been a lot of interesting things happening in the last couple of days. So I think one of the big ones was Ken Dorsey and Andy Dickerson, offensive line coach, have been fired. And are out for next season. Kevin said that was it for the firings, but who knows? That's not always the case. I still think that Bubba could be gone. Special teams was a dumpster fire this season, and I'd be really surprised if they're deciding to keep him around next year. So I think maybe that one could still be coming at some point. So I think that was really big news just in terms of, they brought Ken in to kind of hopefully be the guy that was going to help Deshaun Watson. And I feel like seeing that also is partly an admission that they don't believe Deshaun Watson is the guy, and are maybe going to go more back to their roots and what they know how to do best as an offense, which has been kind of a big conversation with players and everyone, as the season has come to an end. Other big news is that Andrew Berry mentioned Deshaun Watson had a setback in his recovery from his injury. Interesting timing to hear about this as the season is closing out and we're talking about next year. Wondering if there is some type of shake hands agreement that's happening where everyone is just like, yeah, he is not going to be playing for this team again. And there could be something happening in regards to that. But yeah, look, didn't feel disappointment when I saw he had a setback in his recovery, because I think the hope for a lot of us is that he does not take another snap with this team again. So yeah, that was interesting news to see. Certainly special timing for all of that. Andrew Berry and also said a ton of other things when he spoke to the media. One being, about Myles Garrett, basically saying he expects Myles to retire as a Cleveland Brown, that he will be going straight from Cleveland to Canton, is how he put it. And it seems like conversations have been moving in a positive direction, that they're keeping him involved and giving him kind of a voice in the future plans for the team and letting him know, what's going to be going on. I feel like they're probably talking to him about some type of extension. So hoping that that can get done, because of course I think it would be great for Miles to be able to retire in Cleveland. He's such an important player for this franchise, so definitely hoping for that. He talked about Nick Chubb and his media availability, just really how much, continued to say how much respect he has for Nick. It seems pretty up in the air whether or not Nick is going to be coming back, which I think is understandable. His contract is up. It's different. It's a different situation than it was last time when he was still, under contract. I think now, it's going to be a much bigger question on whether or not there is a place for him in this offense. And I think the other really big thing that Andrew said that has really stood out to me was it was the first time we've heard any level of admission that the Watson trade has not gone as planned. He said as much as that, and it gave me a little bit of relief in hearing that. I know that it doesn't necessarily make sense for him to mid-season be like, yeah, this didn't go as we had hoped. I get why he's probably speaking on it more now than before, but it was still so frustrating as a fan throughout the season to feel like you were being lied to by an organization that you are rooting for and, watching games week in and week out, that there was just no acknowledgement that like, hey, this went really bad and we invested our entire future in it and it's gone terribly. So it was comforting in a way to hear him openly acknowledge that, and it really makes me feel like, that they also agree that Watson should not take another snap with this team, because he is so publicly acknowledging it for the first time. We've had a couple of other players make some comments about the team, one being Jack Conklin, another being Joel Bentonio, just, kind of talking about the offensive identity of the team this season, saying that they brought in guys over the last however many years who fit the offensive identity of the Browns and what Kevin Stefanski does best. And that this year they just really didn't have an identity. We're trying all kinds of different things, but nothing was great. They weren't being really good at any one thing, and I think struggled to ever find that identity. Bentonio said that he felt like there was an improvement of the run game over the second half of the season, and they started to get a little bit more of a rhythm, but obviously it was kind of almost too late then in general. But Bentonio went as far as to saying like he wants to go back to doing what Kevin came in running, which was the wide zone scheme, that he feels like that's what the guys they brought in do best, and that's what he wants to move forward doing. So I thought that was really interesting to hear him publicly state that, and I would think that if he is saying that and he is intending on coming back, he has probably had conversations with Kevin and the offensive staff about those future plans that, maybe they really have talked about, like, yeah, we intend on going back to what we do best and want to, run the offense that the guys here are good at running. So I thought that was really interesting to see as well. Obviously now the big questions are, what do they do in the NFL draft? They have the second pick, so there's a lot of decisions they could make. They could take one of those top two quarterbacks if they feel a strong belief in one of them. They could take someone like Travis Hunter if they want to. They could trade down and gain some additional assets. There's a couple of other teams within the top 10, like Jets, Giants, Saints, Raiders. All those guys want quarterbacks, so they might be willing to trade up. And you're trading, down a bit in that first round, but getting some additional assets. I think that's probably the more likely route, because I am not sure that this team is interested in either Cam Ward or Shador. I still think they absolutely are going to draft a quarterback in this draft. I just don't think it's going to be one of those two guys. So my prediction is probably more likely than not that they trade down. Andrew Berry has such a history for trading down. It's something he has done in any round of the draft to continue to pick up more assets. Look, they got a lot of assets though in this draft already, but they have a lot that needs to be fixed on this team. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them take that route. And look, they can still make a top 10 pick in the first round, which would be great if they get a player that they really want. I haven't heard enough rumblings of who they're super interested in yet, but I think that could definitely be a route. So we will have plenty of draft talk this offseason. And I guess that's the one upside of being bad and of the last couple of years not having a first round pick. So the draft was just completely underwhelming every year. Now it's like, this is back to our roots as Browns fans. We have thrived on the draft for decades at this point in time. So looking forward to going back to what we know best and focusing on, April football. It's what we all know and love. But yeah, no, it'll be fun to do some mock drafts over the next few months and speculate and see what's going on at the combine, what the rumors are of who the Browns are interested in. I'm sure it's going to change by the week. So can't predict where it's going to go now, but definitely excited about it. Okay, so that is all I have for you guys today. Lots going on, but appreciate you tuning in. Like I said, I'll be doing more of the live streams on YouTube for watch alongs. So if you want to join in, I will be there. If you follow along on YouTube, please subscribe, please leave a comment. All of that good stuff. Very much appreciate it. Putting more work into the YouTube this year, especially with the watch along. So very much would appreciate the subscribes as well. And then if you listen on Apple or Spotify, please leave a review, rating, share with a friend, all of that good stuff. I very much appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, go Browns.